Nothing will ever get easier. You simply grow stronger. We often long for life to be gentler, hoping our challenges will vanish like morning dew beneath the first light of dawn. But the harsh truth is this: the world has never promised to go easy on anyone. It remains exactly as it is, ruthless, heavy with pressure, sudden turns, and silent scars. The only thing that ever changes is the inner strength quietly awakening inside us. When you step into the ocean, the waves keep surging without pause. The only difference is that you have learned to hold your balance, breathe deeply, and stay calm amid the rushing currents. Every difficulty is an unseen force, and if your mind refuses to break, it will slowly forge itself into unbreakable steel right in the heart of the storm. We face a profound truth. Strength is not a heavenly gift, but the hard-won result of conscious endurance. When you stop asking, "Why is everything so difficult?" and begin asking, "How strong can I become?" that is the moment you step from being a passenger to taking the wheel of your own destiny. In that journey, a genuine sense of freedom is born. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom from the fear of it. You no longer need life to be smooth, because you have become the one who walks through the storm and still remains whole. That is not ease, it is real strength. You cannot see the whole picture when you are inside the frame. Les Brown. The closer you stand, the easier it is to be blinded by what is right in front of you. When you are immersed in your own life story, surrounded by surging emotions, personal biases, and quiet scars, everything becomes strangely distorted, like looking through a warped mirror. You think you understand the problem clearly, but you are only seeing a tiny fragment of a far larger canvas. The human mind often locks itself inside the familiar frame of its own experiences. Like a traveler lost in a maze, it sees only the walls blocking the path and cannot imagine the exit from above. That is why decisions made in the heat of emotion are usually nothing more than raw reflexes, not true understanding. We exaggerate pain, twist the meaning of events, and unconsciously place ourselves at the center of every storm. Only when you step back far enough does the full picture slowly come into focus, sharp and clear. It is not escape, it is wisdom, detaching from the current of emotion so you can observe it with clear eyes. In that moment, you realize what once overwhelmed you was only a small part of life's vast river, that the problem never swallowed everything the way it seemed. It was merely a perspective that had been blown out of proportion. True clarity does not come from staring harder, but from knowing exactly when to step outside the frame. When you find the courage to create distance between yourself and the problem, you do more than see the whole picture. You reclaim the power to tell the story of your own life. Wanting to become someone you are not is simply wasting who you truly are. Kurt Cobain. People carry a silent longing to become a better version, a more accepted version, or someone more admirable. Yet in that pursuit, they unconsciously trade away the one thing that cannot be copied, their original essence. The desire to be someone else usually springs from a feeling of not being enough. We feel unworthy, so we try on foreign molds like an ill-fitting coat. The harder we force ourselves to live in a shape that is not ours, the more our inner world fractures, one part performing, the other quietly burning out. That is the deepest exhaustion, being tired of not being yourself. Every person is a unique stretch of soil. If you keep planting seeds that do not belong to your land, you will only harvest emptiness. But when you truly understand your own nature, your strengths, your weaknesses, your own rhythm, and nurture it exactly as it is, you bloom in a way no one else can ever replicate. Not by someone else's standard of beauty, but by the brilliant truth of your own essence. It is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming a deeper, fuller version of yourself. When you stop wasting energy on playing a role and begin investing in who you really are, you feel a powerful inner release. Because life does not need a perfect copy of anyone, it only needs you to be yourself in the most honest and complete way possible. I will not let anyone walk into my mind with their dirty feet. Gandhi. The human mind is like a private sanctuary, a quiet room that holds our values, beliefs, and fragile peace. Yet so many of us throw the door wide open and let negative words, unconscious judgments, and toxic energy from others trample across that sacred space without even noticing. Dirty feet are not the people themselves, but the poisoned thoughts, envy, prejudice, belittling words, or fears that do not belong to us. When we accept them without resistance, they slowly become the voices inside our heads, cracking our confidence and twisting how we see ourselves. That is how a careless remark can leave a fracture that lasts for years. True awareness is knowing the difference between listening and absorbing, between understanding others and letting them define you. Like a wise gardener, you cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can decide exactly which seeds are allowed to take root. And when you truly master that door, something powerful happens. You are no longer ruled by the noise outside. Peace stops being fragile and becomes a chosen state. You do not need to fight the world, you only need to stay awake enough not to let the whole world inside you. That is not being closed off. That is the deep self-respect of a mind that knows exactly what it deserves. You are only limited by the walls you build yourself. We love to blame circumstances, other people, or fate, but we rarely notice that the strongest prison is the one we have built inside our own minds. Those walls are not made of stone, they are built from fear of failure, old wounds, and quiet beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or I can't. They are invisible, yet they hold us more tightly than any physical cage ever could. People instinctively limit themselves in order to feel safe. After a failure, the mind quickly raises barriers to protect us from repeating the pain. But if we do not recognize it, that very protection becomes our chains. Like a bird hatched in a cage, even when the door swings open, it hesitates to fly, not because it cannot, but because it no longer believes it can. The beautiful truth is that these walls do not fall by brute force, they fall through awareness. The moment you begin to question your own limits, is this actually true, or is it only what I believe? The first crack appears, and every small step beyond your comfort zone widens that opening until you finally see that the space in front of you was always far larger than you once allowed yourself to imagine. We do not deny the difficulties outside, but we return the power to what is inside. Freedom is not when the world changes, it is when you stop building walls that keep you locked in. And when those walls finally crumble, you do not become someone new, you simply become the unlimited version of who you have always been. Nothing ever disappears until it teaches us what we need to know. We like to believe time will erase everything, that if we simply keep moving forward, the past will stay behind. But what has not been understood never truly leaves, it only changes shape, returning in a new form, under a different name, yet carrying the same core lesson. The human mind is not a trash bin for memories. It is a strict teacher. Every wound, every mistake, every heartbreak carries an unfinished lesson. When we run from it, we do not escape, we only delay the learning. And life, with terrifying patience, will replay the same scene again and again until we are mature enough to face it without turning away. Some people move through many relationships and still meet the same kind of pain. Others change cities or jobs yet remain trapped in the same helpless feeling. It is not coincidence, it is a lesson still waiting to be learned. Like an unclean wound, it keeps festering no matter how well you try to hide it. Yet here is the paradox. The moment you stop, turn toward it, and truly understand, not with shallow logic, but with deep feeling, the cycle instantly loses its power. The lesson no longer needs to repeat because you have finally absorbed its heart. The past stops haunting you and instead becomes part of the quiet wisdom that now supports you. There is a silent kind of power, the right to end the repeating loops in your own life. Not by running faster, but by understanding more deeply. And when you finally learn what needed to be learned, what once clung to you so tightly will quietly let go as though it had never been there because its work is finally complete. It is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Chinese proverb, darkness is not only difficult circumstances, it is also negativity, stagnation, and the feeling that life is out of control. When we stand before it, many of us react by complaining, blaming, or cursing. But no matter how loudly we curse, our words never bring light. Cursing gives us the illusion of control, we feel like we are fighting back. Yet in truth, it is only energy wasted on something that changes nothing. Lighting a candle, however small, is a creative act. It does not erase the entire darkness, but it creates a circle of light, and more importantly, it proves that we still have the power to shape our reality. Real strength is not about controlling everything around us. It is about taking action in the smallest space we can influence. A candle does not need to overpower the darkness, it only needs to exist. When someone begins to light their own flame, whether through a positive choice, a kind act, or a single forward step, they break the grip of helplessness that once held them. It does not ask you to become a hero or change the whole world. It only asks you to stop wasting energy on complaints and start doing something, even if it is tiny. And in the moment you choose to light your own candle, you do more than brighten one corner of the dark. You change the way you exist in this world, from someone who merely reacts to someone who creates light. You will never reach your destination if you keep stopping to throw stones at every barking dog. Winston Churchill. In life, the barking dogs are the criticism, judgments, and meaningless noise coming from outside. They serve no real purpose, offer no value, yet they are loud enough to make us pause, turn around, and react. Reacting to every negative trigger is instinctive. We want to protect our ego, prove we are right, avoid being looked down on. But every time you stop to throw stones, you quietly hand the steering wheel of your journey to things that do not deserve it. You are no longer moving toward your goal. You are being pulled into petty battles that drain your energy and lead nowhere. It is like climbing a mountain while constantly turning back to argue with an echo. The mountain does not care whether you are right or wrong, it only measures the height you have reached. And every time you pause because of distraction instead of exhaustion, you lengthen the distance to the summit. Not every bark deserves an answer. In this case, silence is not weakness, it is inner discipline. When you learn to keep walking without reacting to every unnecessary noise, you protect your energy for what truly matters. Goals are not destroyed by criticism, they are delayed by distraction. And when you stay clear-headed enough to keep moving forward despite the barks behind you, you do more than get closer to the destination. You prove that your path was never meant for those who merely stand on the sidelines. You do not get a good life or a bad life. You only get a life. Whether it is good or bad is up to you to decide. At its deepest level, life is not a fixed sentence handed down to us. It is an open space where every thought and every interpretation you choose becomes the brush that paints your inner reality. People often live as though they are simply receiving a life either lucky or unlucky. In truth, we are always interpreting it. An event carries no fixed meaning until the mind touches it and turns it into a story. And it is that story that creates our feelings. When you believe life is against you, you live in defense. When you believe everything is teaching you something, you step into learning. There is a quiet power we often forget, the power to choose our perspective. We cannot control everything, but we can always choose how we see it. Two people can stand under the same rain. One feels only cold and misery, the other feels freshness and renewal. The rain never changes, yet the experience is completely different. This choice is not shallow, positive thinking. It demands inner honesty and mental discipline, the ability to look difficulty straight in the eye without distortion, yet refuse to let it define your entire existence. When you understand that good or bad is not a permanent feature of life, but the result of how you choose to live with it, you finally step out of the passenger seat. You do not need another life to feel complete. You only need to look at the life you already have through a different lens. One single life, but the way you choose to see it, understand it, and move through it will decide whether it becomes a burden or becomes meaning. It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. J.K. Rowling. Talent is only potential. Choice is who we really are. Ability may be a gift or the fruit of training, but it stays in the realm of possible. Only at the crossroads, when we must choose between what is easy and what is right, between safety and growth, does our true self stand revealed, raw and unmasked. People love to define themselves by their abilities because it feels good and asks for no sacrifice. We can proudly say, I could do that without ever facing the consequences. But choice is different, it always carries responsibility. Every decision cuts away countless other possibilities and forces us to live with the outcome. That is why our choices do not merely show who we are, they shape who we become. Ability is like a full arsenal of weapons. Choices deciding what you will actually use them for. Someone may be brilliant and gifted, yet if they keep choosing the easy road, avoidance, or harm to others, those choices become the true mirror of their character. On the other hand, someone who may not shine in talent but consistently chooses kindness, perseverance, and integrity is building a character stronger than any natural gift. You are not defined by what you can do, but by what you choose to do when the moment arrives. In every seemingly small decision, you are quietly writing your own portrait, not with words, but with the choices you make. You do not need extraordinary abilities to become someone of real value. You only need to be aware enough to choose what is right, brave enough to choose what is difficult, and honest enough never to betray what you know is true. Because those repeated choices over time will carve the clearest picture of who you really are, far more powerfully than any talent ever could.